This video is sponsored by Skillshare. So 10 years ago, I was a complete photography noob. I had just started out with photography. I was absolutely loving it, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. My photos were pretty bad. But since then, I'd like to say that my photos have gotten a lot better, and hopefully you guys agree. I've been able to work with some of the world's biggest brands, and I've built a body of work that I'm genuinely proud of. And I could sit here and give you guys 100 tips on how to do the same thing, but I think there's a few tips that are much, much higher impact than the other ones, and those are the crucial tips that I wanna be focusing on today in this video. These are things that I credit a lot of my growth and success to as a photographer, and if you guys do these things as well, I promise you your photos will get better from day one as well. So that's what we're gonna be focusing on today in this video, and before we jump into it, I'm giving away a free Lightroom preset pack. I'll put a link down in the description, and I hope you guys enjoy. Now, this first tip is something that thankfully I learned pretty early on in my career when I was shooting with other very talented photographers, and that is curating and organizing your photos is equally as important as shooting really good photos, and you need to spend the time to do it right. Because you can go out and shoot a ton of amazing images, but if you can't actually find those images, or if you can't recognize what actually looks good in an image, then you might be missing out on some of your best work. And I think this all starts with having a super rock solid system that you can follow after every time you go out and shoot. So for me, that involves coming home, putting my SD card into my computer, and importing all of those images into a single folder in Lightroom. After that, I go through all of those images that I just shot, whether it's 100, 1,000, or 5,000. It doesn't matter. I go through every single one of those images. Now, photos that I don't like and I want to delete, I'll mark them with a 1-star, and photos that I want to keep, I'll mark with a 5-star. After that, I'll delete all the 1-star photos, and then I'll go back and do a second pass on all the 5 stars. And if there's any really standout shots in there, I'll award them a red tag. So now I know within that one day of shooting, if I filter by the color red, then those are all of my best photos from that particular day. Now, not only is this going to save space on your hard drives, which will become an issue the longer that you shoot, I promise you that, but also it allows you to see all of your best photos from that shoot in one place. And then if you want to come back in 5, 6, 7 years and look at those archived photos, you already know that all of the best photos from that day are in one place, and you can easily sort through all of them. There's been so many times that I've gone back and looked at my archived images and found absolute bangers in there that I didn't even think were that good when I actually shot them. A good example of this is some photos that I shot on the Komodo Islands a few years ago using my drone. These photos are insane. I'm so stoked that I came across them, but I wouldn't have found them if I didn't organize my photos in the first place. And also because I've grown so much as a photographer in the last 5 years, now I'm able to actually recognize that those are good photos, and I couldn't recognize that at the time. So do yourself a favor and make sure that you have a good organizational system in place, because later on, you're gonna find images that you shot in the past that are way better than you think they are now. But I want to build upon this idea of recognizing a good photo to begin with, because like I said before, if you can't recognize a photo that you shot is an absolute banger, then it's just going to sit on your hard drives and it's going to do absolutely nothing there. And that leads me on to my second tip, which is consciously consuming good work is crucial for not only developing your eye as a photographer, but also learning what you actually prefer to see in an image, and also learning what looks good in an image. Yes, of course, you need to go out and shoot in order to get better as a photographer. That's the top level, right? That's the most important thing. If you're not shooting, you're not getting better. But consuming good work is a very close second. And when I say consuming, I don't mean just swiping through Instagram and looking at images, liking and moving on. I mean sitting there, looking at a book, looking at an image that you find powerful, and asking yourself, why do I like this image? Is it the stylistic elements? Is it the lighting that I like? The colors? Is it the composition? Is it the subject matter that I'm drawn to? Or is it kind of all of those things together and the story that that image is telling, and the emotions that I'm feeling when I look at that photo? Those are all questions that you should be asking yourself when you look at your favorite images. And when you do this, I recommend sitting down and doing this slowly and doing this consciously. And one of the ways that I like to do that is by looking at photo books. There are millions of different photo books that you can choose from. And if there's a photographer that I really like and they release a book, I'll buy their book. It's nice to have at home. And also when I get a little bit of time and I'm just kind of chilling before I have to go to the gym or something, I'll open up the book and I'll check it out. Now, one of my favorites is Kianos by Joe Howard. I'm not sure it's still for sale, but his work is absolutely stunning. He shoots a lot of film in the Mediterranean. It's just The colors, the composition, and just the depiction of everyday life on an old school film stock that just works perfectly with the natural colors of Greece. This is a book that I absolutely love. Now, another book that I'm really drawn to right now is this book called On Valencia by Nat Meyer. Nat Meyer shoots film in San Francisco. And for those of you that don't know, I'm from the San Francisco area. So it's nice to kind of reminisce on some of these old school nostalgic looking photos from the place that I grew up in. And I like just kind of sitting down, looking at the images and asking myself why I actually like these photos to begin with. But it doesn't have to stop at other photographers. And I think one of the most important things that you can do in your career is consciously consume your own photos as well. Don't just look at an image and say, oh yeah, that's a banger. Ask yourself why it's a banger. And one of the ways that I like to do this is by printing my photos as well. I have a Canon selfie printer, and after every trip, if I go out and I shoot some photos, I'll come home and I'll print those images. Now, these are some images that I shot in Japan of last year, and it's nice to be able to kind of put them out in my room where I can see them. If I'm walking by, I can pick it up, I can look at it, and just seeing it on a different medium as well, and seeing it throughout the day when you're just not on your phone is such a powerful way to get better in touch with your own work. And this is something that I've really loved doing since I got that printer about a year ago. Now, the other thing I've done in the past is create a photography yearbook as well. This is from 2021, and it contains all of my best photos from 2021. It's not for sale. There's one of them. I keep it with me. I show my friends, I show my family, but that's it. It's just all of my favorite images from 2021 organized in one place that I can sit down with, slow down with, and just take a better look at some of my images. I think it's really important to consume good work as a photographer. And honestly, I've gotten a lot better as a photographer over the years because I pay attention to work that I love. And I ask myself why I actually like those photos to begin with. And once you start to pick up what you truly love to see in a photo, those things are going to slowly work their way into your work as well, and you're going to be much happier with your images over time. Now, consuming good work is also crucial if you're trying to find your own unique photography style as well, because if you don't even know what you like in a photo to begin with, then how are you supposed to create a style that's unique to you? And speaking of finding your own unique photography style, I just launched a brand new class on Skillshare which focuses on just that, how to find your own unique photography style. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of Skillshare before because they are legends in the online teaching community, but if you haven't, Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with a massive range of topics ranging from illustration, graphic design, music, marketing, productivity, and of course, photography. And all of these classes are hands-on and practical classes that are taught by real, talented, and successful creatives. And when I was creating my class, I wanted to make it super practical as well. So we do a ton of different activities throughout the class that get your creative juices flowing. Things like creating a mood board, deconstructing some of your favorite images, and a few different editing activities that helped me massively when I was first starting out with photography and I was trying to find my own unique style. I spent the last 10 years thinking about this topic, and I've distilled everything I've learned into a clear 4-step process that will give you a ton of clarity on your current style and the direction that you want to take it moving forward. And this is just one of the thousands of super high quality classes on Skillshare. So if you guys want to check out my brand new class on Skillshare, or just check out the thousands of other classes that Skillshare has available, the first 500 people to use my link in the description or to scan this QR code here will get 1 free month to Skillshare. Thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. I really hope to see you guys in the class. Now let's get back to the video. Now, the next tip on this list is probably the most simple tip on this list, but it's also probably the most important. And that tip is to pay attention. And when I say pay attention, I mean every time you leave the house, even if you don't have a camera with you, pay attention to the things that you see and imagine how that scene would look in a photograph. One of the things you'll quickly learn as you grow as a photographer is that 90% of the photography process is noticing things that are beautiful in the first place. The other 10% is actually clicking that shutter, because if you can't identify something that's beautiful or interesting in the first place, then ultimately you're probably not going to capture that photo at all. And I think this whole concept comes down to this idea of vision, right? Vision is the way that you see and interpret the world as a photographer. And when you're just starting out as a photographer, no offense, but your vision is probably going to suck. Mine sucked. All my favorite photographers' vision sucked as well. Your vision is a muscle that you have to work and that you have to grow over time. And you do that by paying attention to the things that you see on a daily basis, no matter how simple those things are. Things like the light spilling in through the window, or a natural frame that's created by trees that's perfectly framing a landscape. And it can even be as simple as putting your hand out in really soft light and just looking at how that light hits your hand and how soft it is and how it kind of spills off from one side of your hand hand to the other side of your hand. The more you do this, the more you're going to start to recognize really beautiful scenes that you probably would have missed before. And if you're a beginner photographer and you ever go out and shoot with a more experienced photographer, you're going to see this firsthand, because the more experienced photographer is going to notice things that you didn't notice. Now, if you want to take this one step further, I would recommend carrying around an everyday personal camera that you can carry with you every time you leave the house, and you can shoot absolutely anything, whether it's simple, whether it's a grand banger, it doesn't matter what it is. Just having a camera with you and constantly thinking like a photographer is one of the best ways that you can train your vision. Now, my camera of choice is the Fuji X100VI. I'll put a link to that video up there. You guys can check out my review on this camera. Before this, I had the Fuji X100V. Now, you don't need an expensive camera like this. You can pick up a super cheap camera, or you can even use your iPhone. The image quality is really not the point. The point is noticing things that are beautiful when you're out and about and training your vision as a photographer. So if you do want to get better at taking photos, pay attention every time you leave the house. Notice the light, notice the colors, notice the compositions that you see in the wild, and ideally, take a picture of it, even if it's not all that interesting. Now, the next tip on this list is for those of you that spend way too much time focusing on either the sharpness of your image or the image quality of your photo. And you think that if your photo is not super sharp or it doesn't have really good image quality, then that photo sucks. Well, I hate to break it to you, but the sharpness and the image quality of your photos mean very little in the grand scheme of things. So for example, do you want your photos to be known for being sharp, or do you want your photos to be known for being beautiful? Because there's a very big difference between those two things. A photo really does not need to be sharp or have high megapixels in order for that photo to be beautiful. Look at all of the greatest photos of all time. What do you think makes those photos so powerful? I can tell you one thing, it is definitely not the image quality of those images, because a lot of these photos were shot on super old cameras in really old glass. No, what makes these photos so incredibly powerful is the story that these photos are telling. It's the combination of light, color, composition, subject matter, and how all of these factors come together to tell a powerful story that stands the test of time. The story that a photo tells is by far and away the most important thing. And when I was just starting out with photography, I was really obsessed with having super sharp images. I was watching all these videos about making sure my images were sharp and export settings and making sure my camera had high enough megapixels. But one of the things I've started to realize over the years is that sometimes I actually like photos that are less sharp, because they do a better job of telling a more meaningful story about the thing that I was photographing. There's really no need to obsess about sharpness and image quality. If your camera was made in the last 10 years or so and you spent at least a few $100s on it, chances are it's more than good enough to capture super powerful images. With that said, of course, you do need gear to take photos. And if you are in the market to buy a new camera or a new lens, I have a free photography gear buying guide. I'll put a link down in the description. You guys can download that completely free. Now, I want to start this next tip off with telling you a little fun fact about myself, and that is my vision absolutely sucks. And I don't mean my vision as a photographer, I mean my vision as a human being. Physiologically, my vision is like 20/10 or something, and I'm very much nearsighted. But I also choose not to wear glasses because I actually think it makes me a better photographer. Let me explain. One of the biggest pitfalls so many beginner photographers fall into is focusing so much on the details of a scene and not seeing things at a bigger picture. And one of the things I've realized is that because I can't always see all the details in front of me, it allows me to see the scene kind of as a whole. It allows me to break the scene down into shapes and light and color, and then compose my shots based on that. And that's why this next tip is, if you're out shooting, try unfocusing your eyes when you're looking at your composition. When you unfocus your eyes, you kind of break that scene down into its most fundamental building blocks, and then you can compose based on that. And this is great because it allows you to not get too sucked up on the details in that scene, but rather see the scene as a whole. This is especially useful for composition. And I actually talked about this same tip in my composition video because I think it's so crucial and so high level, and a lot of photographers can really benefit from trying this. Now, this is also super effective in the editing phase as well. And if you're editing an image and you're just really struggling with the colors or the contrast, try unfocusing your eyes and kind of breaking that scene down a little bit and just looking at it through a new lens, if that makes sense. I know this might sound a little gimmicky, but I promise it works. So go out and try this and let me know in the comments down below how it worked for you. Now, the last tip on this list is be okay with taking bad photos as a photographer. I know it's hard to believe, but your favorite photographer that you follow on Instagram or on YouTube or wherever they are takes terrible photos most of the time they go out and shoot, myself included. If I go out on a shoot and I walk away with one absolute banger image, that is a massive win for the day. And most of the time, that's not even what happens. I'll go out and I'll shoot 1,000 photos. And to be honest, I'm not going to be happy with most of those images, because once you grow as a photographer, your standards are going to continuously raise as well until it gets to the point where everything has to be spot on. The lighting, the subject matter, the color, the composition, and sometimes that's not always going to be the case. Now, I think this is also equally as important as a beginner photographer, because if you're a beginner and you go out and your standards are too high and you shoot 1,000 photos and they all suck, you're probably going to feel pretty damn bad about yourself after that shoot. But you need to recognize that every time you take a bad photo, you're still learning what actually looks good in a photo, because if you can't recognize the bad photos, then you can't recognize the good photos either. And building off of that, if you want to shoot more good photos, then you need to go out and shoot more, because a lot of the time, like I said, you're going to go out and shoot and you're not going to get anything good. But the more you shoot, the luckier you're going to get. And this is especially the case with things like street photography or landscape photography, which are very serendipitous, and they highly depend on a lot of environmental factors like the light or the people that are walking through your scene. And a lot of the time you'll go out and shoot a sunset and everything seems like it's all lined up, and then boom, a cloud rolls in and then your photo sucks. Same thing can happen in a city. There's a person standing in the right place, you get your camera up and then they walk away and that shot is gone forever, right? But the more you shoot, the luckier you're gonna get. But those are just some of the high level tips that I've picked up on over the last 10 years as a photographer. And I know that there's still so many more out there. By no means is this list exhaustive. And I still have an entire list of tips that I think you guys can benefit from. So if you guys do want to see a part 2 or a part 3 to this video, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to share those ideas with you guys. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and I would love to chat with you in the comments. So just drop a comment down below if you liked it or if you had any thoughts on some of the things that I discussed in this video. I would greatly appreciate that. But that is all for this one, guys. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. And also thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. I greatly appreciate it. And I will chat with you guys again very soon in the next one.